We unknowingly do shadow work every single day. We just have to intentionally do it. What intentionally doing it means when we're in a trigger. Good morning. How are you today? We have got a great one. We're actually going to this really, really special spot. It is pretty incredible, and I cannot wait to take you there. I found it the other day, and I have been going. It's been a godsend. What I really want to get onto is shadow work. What is shadow work, and why do we need to use it? Let me tell you a story. Ethan was about 3 or 4 years old, and we were at a McDonald's play place. All of a sudden, I look up, and Ethan is climbing the slide backwards. And then this enraged feeling comes over me, like I am pissed, "Ugh." And I'm like, don't you dare climb up that slide backwards. Like, just all of this trigger came out at once, and I had no clue where it was coming from. And so, without even realizing it, I paused, took a breath, and I instantly was reminded of a time when I was about 2, 3 years old. About this time, we were living in a trailer park near Tampa, Florida. We had this metal slide out back that I loved to play on. Insert cute picture of me going down the slide when I was around this age range. Wasn't I adorable? And so this one particular day, I was outside playing in the backyard, and my dad was watching me outside. Well, I remember going up the slide, and when I went up the slide, my dad lost his shit. Don't you dare go up that slide. You go down the slide the right way. You do not go down the wrong way. Harped it in that you go down the slide the correct way, or else there's going to be consequences. And I always knew that his consequences meant a spanking or being severely yelled at with a lot of anger and rage. So as I'm brought back to the McDonald's where Ethan had just went up the slide and I yelled at him, I had a choice. I could choose to continue getting so angry about going up a slide the wrong way, or I could let that be my dad's parenting and choose to do better in the future. You see, what I did without even knowing it was called shadow work. Every trigger that we have is tied to a particular trauma or a memory or a moment that impacted us deeply. Me being yelled at to not go up the slide the wrong way seeped out in my own parenting, and I didn't even know why I was angry. And it's a story that I talk about in my book, Soulful Miles. We unknowingly do shadow work every single day. We just have to intentionally do it. What intentionally doing it means when we're in a trigger, we pause for a second. Why are we having these big emotions of anger or blame or shame or criticism or judgment? Anything that it may be, there's usually a memory or a moment tied to that, like the one that flashed in front of me when I was yelling at Ethan. When I traced the trigger back, the trigger traced to that moment. And so what I decided to do was give myself a big hug, give that little 2-year-old Jen that just got berated a big, big, loving hug. Say to myself, that wasn't okay, that happened. And I recognize that my dad was doing the best he could with what he had, with his parenting, right? And so I don't hold any blame, shame, criticism, because I recognize that it wasn't okay. And whether or not my dad ever recognizes that is none of my business. What is my business is letting go of those traumatic moments that don't need to take up space in my soul anymore. So after recognizing that, right, I was able to be grateful that I had that moment. I was able to be grateful for that trigger because it helped me let go of something that I didn't need to continue carrying. You know, forgiveness doesn't mean that you forget. It just means that you accept and recognize where that person is on their healing journey, and you don't hold any big, heavy, negative emotions around them. You know, triggers happen every day when you least expect it in the most minute of ways. Like my child going up the slide wrong. When you feel that coming on, when you feel that trigger inside, it's this kind of, for me, it's this fire in my belly and overtakes my entire body. And before I know it, I am so dizzy from anger and blame and shame and judgment and all those other overwhelming things that are now in my consciousness. And when there are those big, heavy emotions, we can use that trigger as a teacher and trace it back to that big moment in your life. I mean, it could be as simple as stubbing your toe and your parents neglected the pain that you were in. These kinds of triggers and trauma, they're connected to any and everything. So don't feel like that moment that's connected to that is too small or too insignificant, because it's not. You get such a freedom once you trace the trigger. You accept that, hey, this was that moment. You see where this energy came from. And then you can be grateful, right, that you had this moment as a teacher. And then you get to choose if you keep doing that or not. I chose that going up the slide backward really wasn't that important as long as there were safety parameters around it. We don't have to continue to carry our parents' parenting mistakes. Like I always say, they're doing the best they can with what they have. Because here's the deal, our parents probably had no idea what shadow work was. They probably had no idea how their actions were causing trauma in our lives. You know, we have to give other people grace when we're going back and tracing those triggers, because that moment can be so overwhelming. That moment that you go back to, that experience, it will almost feel like you're back in it, right? And we don't want to wallow. We don't want to stay stuck there. We want to breathe through this trigger. We first want to hug ourselves. Immediately hug yourself after you see that moment. Give yourself some love. Validate your experience, because your experience is real. And then once you validate your experience, the big emotions start to lift a little bit. They start to ease up. It's not so heavy, it's not so big, it's not so overwhelming. To let go of that moment, to accept it, you have to realize you were also doing the best you could with what you had in the years after. Hindsight is 20/20. You made decisions based on the awareness and the perception of the world that you had for all these years. And chances are you've probably carried this trigger for a very long time. So you might have big emotions of blame and shame and criticism of yourself come up when you're doing this shadow work. And that's normal. We all have that happen. We all have hindsight on things that we would choose to do better in the future. We can't shame our past self, because that just keeps the cycle going. You know, doing this shadow work, sitting in your shadow for a minute, it allows you to accept what has been, accept what is, and know that you were doing your best with what you had in that moment. Just like whoever gave you that trauma. When we do our shadow work, we shift the blame, shame, criticism. We change the narrative. Our ego doesn't get to be the victim anymore, because that's what our ego wants. Our ego is deeply embedded in our shadow, and it wants us to be the victim. It wants us to make it all about us. But at the end of the day, all we want is to be seen, valid, and heard. People are remorseful for what they do. They're usually embarrassed. They feel guilty. They don't want to talk about it. And I'm sure Like in my past and yours too, there's things you've done that you're not proud of, that has hurt people, unintentionally or intentionally. That's a hard thing to own up to. So when I'm doing my shadow work, I try my best to think of that in the other person. I think of that they have those feelings too, and those feelings are really big and hard and scary. I found that when I make my shadow my friend, it's easier to grow through life, right? Because like I said, these triggers are teachers. They help us see the lessons in life instead of just the struggles. And so yes, there's a lot of past struggles in the shadow that need to be seen, valid, heard, accepted, and let go. Because you've carried it for long enough, you don't need to carry it anymore. So today, when you have a trigger, when you have big emotions come up, pause for a second and trace the trigger back to a moment or a memory that was traumatic for you. We can do shadow work every single day, in every single moment. And now, when I have a trigger come up, it's gone and I've traced it back and I've let it go and I've validated, seen, heard, accepted it in like 30 seconds. The more you practice shadow work, the faster you get at it, the faster you get at releasing that trigger so it doesn't keep coming up. Our shadows, they show us the cycles that we have to break. The things that keep coming up as triggers, that's all in our shadow. And it's up to us to be able to heal it so we can continue walking in our highest good. I promise you, shadow work is not as hard as it feels at first. It seems daunting, like, oh my gosh, I have so many traumas. But quite honestly, the simplest and smallest of traumas can be some of the biggest shadow work that you'll do, because you'll find that it releases a core belief. Like me feeling that at 2 to 3 years old becomes a core belief. And when you get to choose whether you want to keep that or do better, you choose doing better and you release it and it's not there anymore. The trigger doesn't continue to come up. There may be another trigger that's tied to another moment, but you already know how to do it. So it's not as scary when you practice it every single time you have a trigger. You can weave your shadow work in there. Right now though, that's what I want to show you. Look at this spot. We have been at this campground a little over a week. We're coming back in a few days. They didn't have anything available, so we'll have to make a little pit stop somewhere else and then come back. But yeah, this is the view that I've gotten to have every day walking out here to the Saginaw Bay. You know a great place to do shadow work? Out in nature. Nature is truly one of our best teachers. Everything out here really does live in harmony. They live in the moment. They don't harbor the past. There's always a new season right around the corner. And as we're approaching fall, it's the perfect time to do shadow work. It's the perfect time to shed things that don't serve you anymore. So today, when you have a trigger, I'm challenging you to trace it back. Trace it back to that traumatic moment. Accept that that moment happened. Give yourself the biggest loving embrace. Then we can have gratitude that you had this trigger to show you this moment, and we can release it. It doesn't have to continue taking up space in our consciousness, in our mind, in our body, in our soul. Our lives are up to us to define and create and mold and sculpt. Time is going to pass either way, and I intend on making mine count. And by making it count, I'm not going to live in my shadow. I'm going to clear as much out as I can to live a happy, healthy, and free life. I was able to do it. And you know what that means? If I'm able to do it, so are you. You can do this. I believe in you, and I know that you are enough, just as you are in this very moment, to sit in your shadow and free up some space. Thank you so much for coming on this beautiful walk with me today. Oh, it is glorious. I hope that you have a very safe trip home. Thank you for being here and being you. I love you so much.